Well, Shelly's out in the shop. She's helping make some stuff. We're making rubber guards for the new heat exchanger so it doesn't get scratched up by the metal bracket. She cut some rubber strips for the hose clamps that'll hold it on. She also cut out gasket material for the dipstick tube to the oil pan. And I put another coat of paint on the oil pan. So that'll be ready. Then I cleaned up the transmission real good, and well, as good as I could, and put a and we did the bell housing also. Put a coat of paint on that. Transmission and bell housing and the heat exchanger bracket all mounted back on. Motor mounts, I cleaned them up as best I can. Some of them are better condition than others. I've got these little rubber pads cut out to go underneath those between the fiberglass and the motor mounts to try to protect it a little bit. I'll have to order new motor mounts eventually. I don't want to spend any more money. I've just been spending so much money on parts. I'm trying to make do with what I absolutely can. The epoxy set up really nice overnight. I'm going to sand this up and then cut up the 1708 mat and put a piece of mat up there with like probably around a 2 inch overhang around it. Okay, so I got this all prepped, sanded up, wiped down with the acetone. I got some pieces cut here. So I got a little bit of a valley in there, so I'm going to do some smaller strips in here. So like this side is going to be this piece, that piece, and then this piece, and I got little notches so that I can come down the sides of the strut a little ways. And this side's the same, it's got a little bit deeper of a valley, so a little piece, bigger piece, and then the main piece. I'll go whip up some epoxy and be back to lay this up. Okay, I got all the mat laid up. Let that harden up now. And Bryman's painting away. So we're putting the epoxy barrier coat down on here. And then we're starting the engine bay here. And then we'll move up into the bilge. And then we'll move the heater back here. So we want to bake this. Still hoping to be able to drop the engine in today, but we'll see if the parts show up and Shelly's able to run them out to us. Alright, me and Bryman got the first coat on. So all painted up. We're gonna get the heat blowing on it, and then as soon as it's dry to the touch, we'll put the second coat on. Still waiting on this thing to harden up enough so I can just sand the rough spots down, and then I'll put on my next batch of thickened epoxy with bubbles. Got the engine in, so it's sitting on the motor mounts. We scratched up the bilge a little bit when I go to bottom paint in the for the strut repair. So all our painting's done. Still need to torque the keel bolts, but they're snugged down on there. So I can't work on the boat tomorrow. Sunday the yard's closed, and Monday I gotta go to work, so I'll see what I can figure out for doing some work on the boat. Got this Velox metal primer and then anti-fouling paint for the propeller. So I'm just using my old shaft to hold the propeller, and I've had the heat on it, warming it up, and I'm gonna get this all painted up so it's ready when the new shaft is installed. Okay, we got one primer coat and two paint coats. This is supposed to be a multi-season paint, or offers multi-season protection, so we'll see. Next, we're gonna sand this down and then get the final. I think I'm gonna have to do a final coat because I can see little divots and stuff in it. Do a final coat on that, and then sand it, and hopefully it'll be good after that one, and then we can start epoxying. Then while I'm waiting on this to dry, I'll be up hooking up stuff in the engine and doing that part of it. One thing I learned with this glass bubbles is you have to add a lot of it to get it thick, and it puts like, I had barely any resin in here, and now it's already up to here with the glass bubbles, and it's still not thick enough. So I wasted a lot of resin on the first go around with this. So when if you do your glass bubbles, make sure you just put in a little bit of resin and then get the thickness you want with the glass bubbles, because you can always make more if you need to, and not waste a bunch of resin like I did on my first batch. Okay, that's it all sanded up. It looks rougher than it actually is, but I need to add a little bit in here, and then there's a little spot right there, and there's a couple of spots on the other side. So I'll get that put on, and then get the heat cranking again, and go up and work on the engine. Okay, I got it on there. I left it kind of thick in spots, and I'll sand it down and shape it nice. I'm just gonna hand sand that. It goes pretty quick. Okay, Tuesday morning, back at the boat. I got that all sanded up and shaped how I want it. I got it all wiped down with acetone. I got some rags in there to protect the cutlass bearing, and I'm mixing up my Total Protect Total Barrier coat. I'm gonna do 2 coats of this. While the first coat's drying, I'll go up and work on the bilge. I made some big, huge, thick square washers to reinforce the washers on the keel bolts. First coat of Total Protect is on, so we'll go up and work on the keel bolts. Second coat is tacky, but not coming off on my finger, and that's what you want for applying the next coat of paint, which in this case is going to be the bottom paint. I just wanted witnesses. I got the shaft centered in the shaft log as good as I possibly can get it, and I got the coupler. It's tight here, tight here, tight here, and tight on the bottom. So I'm going to tighten up my top motor mount bolts, and hopefully everything stays exactly the same. I've been aligning this motor for hours and hours. Well, I've been working as fast as I could humanly work. The engine is aligned, the seal is in, it's all attached, all hooked up. The only thing that I need to do tomorrow, they're going to drop the boat in the water about 10 a.m. and then I'll need to install my new heat exchanger and just hook up the hoses that go to it. And I've got the alternator back in, I've got all the wires hooked up. I need to put on the air cleaner, but I've got my little fuel can ratcheted down. I'm gonna go home and get a length of hose, because the existing hose isn't long enough to go into the tank. And then I'm gonna whip up some sort of sealing, some sort of way to put the hoses through the top and then seal it up so I don't have diesel splashing out. I got some absorbent pad underneath it if in case a few drips come out. But I mean, the boat's trashed, but if I can just get it back into my slip, I can finish up everything else I need to do on it. Got my tarps all taken down and my side all cleaned up. Just need to roll up that extension cord. Ooh. This will all be cured by morning, but okay, we're tied up on the other side of the dock from the launch. So we're gonna put this exhaust elbow back in and drop the heat exchanger in and hook up all the hoses and then fill up the coolant. Alright, I got everything all connected back up. I checked all my Hose clamp's really good. Got the new heat exchanger installed. I'm trying something different this time. I took the line off of the bottom of the thermostat and I hooked it up to my little hand pump. A guy in my Catalina 30 group on Facebook suggested refilling with a hand pump, so I'm gonna try it this way this time to see if I can eliminate some of the massive amount of air I had to bleed off for almost an hour and a half last time. Well, we got the motor running. Ended up splashing coolant all over the engine, so now that's all evaporating off. So I'm just gonna run it for a little while and make sure I got all the air out of the coolant lines. I just paid our bill for the haul out. It's just over $1,000 for 10 days. Oh, we're off. Took like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to bleed all the air out of the coolant again, so my idea did not work. But engine temps are staying just about 150 maybe. We're gonna buzz on back to our slip, and then my coworker's gonna come pick me up. Well, this is the rainiest weather I've ever been out in the boat. Because I just left the top on. Got like no wind today, so even if I wanted to raise the sail, I don't think it'd do anything. I'm gonna work on cleaning up some of this disaster. Okay, well, I got it pretty well picked up in here. I guess this more or less concludes my keel stub and strut repair. I'm gonna align the engine one more time. My buddy told me that the boat can flex on boat stands, and then when it gets back in the water it can change shape, so it's always a good idea to check it in the water. So I'll be doing that, and I'm gonna be doing a little bit something about like that little bit of crack on the side. I'm probably gonna grind that back or sand all that down, and maybe just put a nice thick, big long thick strip of fiberglass all the way down the sides, just kind of to reinforce the sides and tie my new stuff in with the old stuff a little better. Maybe like a 5-6 inch wide piece, but I'll get all that later. All the bolts torqued up really nice to 80 pounds. And also I noticed the deepest part of my bilge is now in the front with the switch, so I might be redoing where I have my pump. Like maybe I'll put my pump up here in the front, because that's the deepest spot, and then I'll leave the switch here, and then that way, because the sun, it's like the water was like 3/8 inch deep right there, and there was no water back here, and so definitely want to have the sump and switch in the deepest part of the bilge so I can keep it dry if any water or anything leaks in there. Well, as dry as possible, or as low as possible. At least keep the nuts out of the water. So yeah, I'm gonna call this one a wrap, except for the little thing I'll do over there, but that'll be a later project. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.